Hey guys, welcome to my second video. Last time what we did, we built a nice little form that looked like a dialog box, which held nothing but a label and a button that changed the text of the button, and it started the calculator. So this time what we're going to do is we're just going to improve upon the same one. So I saved this file last time, the tutorial PowerShell Hello World. So maybe if you followed the last tutorial, then you already have it. If not, you just go back to the first video, and you're gonna find in the description or in the comments, somebody posted in Pastebin the whole code that I posted on the description, basically, but with better indentation and all that. So I'm just gonna open that file. So right click, edit on that file. It's gonna open PowerShell ISE. If you don't have that file, just start and then start typing PowerShell user ISE. So this one here. So there you go. So what we will need to do to be able to hold a nice list view inside of there, we're gonna need to increase the size of the dialog, the fixed dialog form. Well, I guess we could change that to false. Topmost basically means always on top. You don't need it to be always on top. Gonna set maximize box to true and minimize box to true. Those are the little buttons you see at the top right of your windows, and everything else stays the same for the name of, well, we could change the name, I guess, because it's not going to be Hello World anymore. So let's call it Process Manager. And we've got a label here. We're just going to change its orientation. So now it's going to be, instead of middle center, it's going to be middle left. The text is going to be process list. Boink. There you go. Button. We're gonna need to change its location, and we're gonna change what it does. So we can clear that here. Basically now what it's gonna do is refresh process list. There we go. Middle center. We keep that. What we're going to put in add click, that we're going to do later on. We're going to create a function that populates the list view that we're going to add in there. So right here between the two, usually I like to keep the order of the elements that I add to my code. I like to keep them in the same order as they are displayed within the window. So add a list view. So let's call it list view processes equals new object System.Windows.Forms list view. All right. Indentation, list view process. So we're going to need to set its location. So now we're going to call for the new object of the same type as here. So I guess I could just copy paste that so I don't have to retype it. New object system drawing size. All right, so we need it to be big enough to hold. Oh, that's not the size, right? That's the location. So we need it maybe 32 pixels under the label. Let's copy paste the whole line and just change size. Its size is gonna be, let's set it to something that's gonna fit within our window. So just 800 by 402. If you guys are wondering why I'm setting those specific numbers, I pre-calculated them so I didn't have to fiddle with them later on. We're gonna add some properties. ListView dot view we're gonna change that to the default in this case is, if you want to see what's the default of for one of the variables, just run that without any equal after it. So large icon. That's not what I want. I want it to be details. Sort of when you select details within a Windows Explorer window. So instead of icons like that, you want it like that instead. See what I mean? ListView. All right. Just gonna fast forward this, I guess. ListView process, full row select equals true. We want to select the whole row so we see what we select, I guess. That's not necessary, but it's nice. Like I said at the beginning, we want to be able to select more than one item, so multi-select true. We're gonna allow the columns to be reordered, so set that to true. And we're gonna add grid lines, so true. What else do we need? Well, I guess that's all. So we're just gonna add it to the form now. So boom, form hello world, add this. There you go. So now you have a nice list view added to your form. Let's see what it looks like. There you go. But it's empty. It needs a bit of love. And that button, the other one here, the reason why you didn't see it is because it's behind the list view, so it's hidden behind. So we need to change its location. So as I said, pre-calculated for 50 should fit under. It's still running. Boop. Play. There you go. Now it's here. And we want to add a second button. This one is going to be called end process. All right. And selected processes. Let's make it nice. And selected processes, there you go. And its location, instead of 8 pixels from the border, this one is going to be set at 568 pixels from the border. So now it's here. There we go. So now what we need to do is basically just populate that view. So let's create the function that's going to do that. All right. So I always go back to the beginning of my my code to create functions, because usually that's where you want to keep functions within code. There's no real reason, I guess, for it. It's just whoever invented programming decided that functions should be there. Or maybe I'm just making that up. Probably the second one, making that up. So we're going to create a function that's called getProcesses, and we're going to assign that function to our click me button. So here, getProcesses. So whenever we click that click me button, that's now called refresh process list, or the text on it is refresh process list, it's going to run this function that I created here. So what we'll need to do is whenever we click on it, we want it to be the items in it to be cleared, because if we don't do that, it's gonna re-add. It's just gonna add at the bottom of the already existing process list. So it's not really showing a true picture of your currently running processes. And we want to also clear the columns, and you're gonna see why in a few seconds. So basically what I do is I populate a variable with the content of the get process output. So let's say we run that. So you see it's running quite a few processes. How many? We could check. Whoops. Get process measure. 163. All right. Let's go back here. So get process, and we're just going to select a few columns. So I pick ID, process name, handles, npm, pm, which are basically the same ones that you're seeing at the bottom, the top here. So handles, npm, pm, ws, cpu, ID is already there. I don't think SI is necessary in this case, and process name is already selected. We could add path in there. So we're going to see which program is, which process, where is it running from. All right, so we have our process list here in that variable, and we're going to look for which properties are within what we selected here. So basically it's going to output the same list that we selected here, but that's okay. So we're going to look at the first process. So to do that, we add the square brackets, and to pick the first item we put 0. The second item is 1, the third item is 2, and so on. So process number 1, and we want to look at the PS object content, object and properties. There you go. So what's that's doing is we're getting a list of all the columns or values, properties, whatever, for that first entry here in the process list. And why we're doing that is because we're gonna use it now to create the columns within the list view. So basically, now that we got the properties, for each properties that we got, we're gonna add a column for it. So list view process column add, we're gonna use the add method, and we're gonna get the name of the property, and we're gonna add out null at the end, because if we run this and look at the console, it's gonna output a number for each columns that you added. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So out null, it removes that that output to the console. Much like void, which I didn't explain in the another video. Basically, if I just ran that here, you would see that it did load the DLL, but if I run it again this way, it doesn't show anything in the console. So out null, we could check to see what that gives us. So refresh process list, you see it created the columns, but it didn't add the items inside the list view. So let's do that now. So now we're going to create a loop. So for each process in the array processes, we're gonna do what we're gonna do here is we're gonna create a process list view item. That's a type of object that's what you need to create in order to be able to populate your list view. So much like what we did earlier here at the bottom, is we create a new object and then we populate it with properties. So new object System.Windows.Forms.ListView item. All right, and that list view item is gonna be the first property of it is gonna be the process ID, process.id. So this here, basically. an ID is usually an integer, a number that the system is using to keep track of that process. So now that we have our ListView item created, we're gonna populate it. So now for process dot, we're gonna reuse that here, property, where the name is not ID because we already have ID as the main value of it, where name not equal ID for each object. So that's a nested for each. So we're running a for each inside of the for each here, but that's what's required to be able to create what we need. All right, so column name, the column that we're gonna add, just give me a quick second, I gotta think and talk at the same time. So basically we want the name of the property that we're currently going through. So when we run a for each, whenever it goes through those that array list of items within the properties, this here means that the currently selected object in the for each. So let's say my array was 1 2 3 4 5 and I ran a for each and I ran that here, and then it would show me 1 2 3 4 5 for every time it goes through that array. So we're gonna create that variable so we can then create add to our process list view item sub item add not add, sorry, list view item sub items dot add. What am I doing? That's not how you do it. There you go. And now the reason why I do this inside of a string, like whenever you do this, that means you're creating a string. But if sometimes you want to populate strings with variables, so you need to tell it this is not text, process this as a variable, and don't process it as a text. So process dot column name, so we're calling the name of, not the name, we're calling the property with that name within the currently selected process and the for each process in processes. I don't know if that sounds confusing to you. Hopefully it's not, because I'm hoping that it's clear enough for you to understand. Once again, I'm just gonna post the code at the end of the video after I post it, and I'll add some comments in there so that it describes better what I'm trying to do. So now that we populated our process list view item with each of the values in each of the columns that we've seen here, now what we need to do is add it to the list view. All right, so let's add it, list view processes items dot add, and now we're adding the process this here, process list view item, and once again we're doing out null, because if not it's just going to output numbers in the console that don't mean anything. And all right, that's it. Oh, and after that, once it went through all the processes and fully populated the list view, we're gonna tell the list view to auto resize its columns with the method header size. So basically expand it as large as the contents of it. All right, so let's run that just to see how it works. Oh, it didn't do it. All right, so it only added the ID of the process. So basically that means I made an error inside of my code. So let's go and troubleshoot that here. Oh, I only said column and not column name. Maybe some of you catch that already. So just replace column with column name, which is what I was trying to pull here. And let's run it again. Refresh. There you go. So now we have all of our processes listed in here. You see that whenever I expand the window, it doesn't expand with. There's a reason for that. All right. So now that we've seen that, what we're going to do is add anchors to our list view. Anchor. To add anchors, basically you need to tell it to clip to the side of the form. So equal, and now we're calling for System.Windows.Forms forms.anchor style. So we want it to anchor to the bottom of it, and also, so we're gonna call a few of those here. We're gonna left. Basically, we're gonna anchor it to all sides of it. So left, right, bore, and top. Let's try it again. See, now it expands properly. Let's refresh it. Oh, but you see now the buttons are not following, right? They're hidden. So what we need to do again. All right, let's we need to anchor our buttons now. So for the refresh process list button, we only need it to be anchored to the bottom and the left of the form border. So I'm just going to copy that here, so I don't need to add this, remove this. Oh, there's two equals. Let's try that. It follows, it stays, perfect. And now we need to do the same with the other one, but this time we anchor it to the other side of the screen. All right, so button and process. And this one is going to be anchored to the right. There you go. Refresh. You see the buttons are here. They stayed there. Perfect. That's all I want. So now we need to create a function to end the processes. All right. So function. We're going to call it end processes. Curly brackets. All right, so now we're going to need to compile a list of selected processes and put that inside an array. So to create an array, we that's the best method here. Well, that's the easiest method, I should say. So basically, at sign and brackets. That means you're creating an array. I'll show you how to know what's what. So if I do that, get type, there you go. It says here, that's an array. If I only did without the at, well, it doesn't even know what it is. So, but let's say I did with a string, so blah, blah, blah. It knows that it's a string. This one, it knows that it's an array. There we go. So we're casting the results of the ListView processes dot selected indices, which is the plural of index, not indexes. That's what I learned here. We need to know in which column is the ID of the process. Just a quick second here. And all right, so let's keep recording. I knew my camera would stop recording soon, so that's why I stopped talking. All right, so what we need to know is where in the list view, where is the column name ID, where dot text equal ID, and we want the index of it. So basically, when you're putting parentheses like this around an object and your dot property, it's basically the same as if I was doing remove this and then select expand property index. Exactly the same. It's just a shorter form of it. All right. So now that we know where the column ID is, we're gonna go through the list of selected processes. Pipe for each object, and for each object, now we need to know what the process ID is. Process ID equals, once again we're going to use the brackets, ListView processes dot items, and we're going to select the item of the number, well, currently selected in this for each. So whenever I put that here, that means that that variable means the currently which object is currently being processed, like I explained above here, but hopefully this time it's clearer. Sub item. So we're looking for the sub items within that item that we've selected, and we want to select the sub item where the ID column index is. ID, yeah, that's it, dot text. So we want the text of the column which holds the ID of the process and the currently selected item inside the list view item, or the list view selected and items. And then for that process that we just identified, we're gonna end it. So process with ID of process ID. We don't want it to confirm, false, and we're gonna force it. And for now, we're just gonna use the what if function. Basically, when you add this at the end of a function that you're trying to run, it's just gonna output in the console that you're simulating your action. Basically, you're not actually doing it. So this way you don't kill processes that you don't want to, or you're not gonna get unwanted input or output consequences, whatever. Function end process, we just created it, so now we need to assign it to our button end process here, and let's see. So refresh that list. All right, we got a few. So let's say that agent here, BattleNet agent, I selected it, end process, performing process on target agent with the number 10312. That's what I did. If I select a few and do this, you see it's trying to end all of them. Maybe we could actually try and end an actual process. So let's launch the calculator and change our code to remove the what if, so it actually closes the calculator. All right. All right, let's look for that calculator. Calculator, it's right here. End it. End it. There you go. It's gone. But it's still shown here because we didn't do a remove item that's been closed. We could add that in there, I guess, or we could do that every time you finish this, it triggers get process again. So let's say I do at the end of end process, I add get process. So basically the function is gonna run through these commands and then refresh the process list again. So let's say I do it again for calculator, refresh process list, find the calculator, end it, and it's refreshing the thing, the list view again. And like I said earlier, it's also clearing the columns, and it's clearing the items every time we hit the get process function at the beginning of it, basically. You could also do that whenever you launch your script, it does get the process list, so you don't have to hit that button every time. Let me show you here. So whenever it activates the form, also get process. So boom, and it's doing it right away. And that's how you do it, folks. Hopefully that was easy enough to follow, and hopefully you enjoyed it. I'm gonna try to post a video every week if I can. I'm trying to find the time as much as I'm trying to make room for it whenever I can. Have 2 kids, don't have time. So that's it. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and leave some comments, thumbs up, subscribe, whatever, and I'm gonna try to do my best and give more examples of what you can do with PowerShell and Windows Forms. Thank you.